Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. So today I want to do the third part of the series on usury that I'm working on. So I'm going to have part 1 and 2 linked in the description below. And if you want to see those go, I'm not going to recap those. You can check them out in the description. But basically this is my own idea that I've developed, and I want to pitch it to you. And I think it's pretty interesting. So let's look at the history of since the beginning of Christianity. Let's start there, okay? So from the beginning of Christianity until the mid-1500s, Christendom was forbidden to do usury because usury is a sin, or the charging of interest, right? And so they also needed loans. And so basically they had this group living among them, Jews, who would be the bankers and who would give them loans, right? And so just imagine this scenario if you really think about it, right? So Jews admit that usury is a sin based on the Bible, okay, under Leviticus. We covered that in episode 1. But it says don't lend your brother money at interest, right? Don't do usury with your brother, and don't lend your victuals at interest, it says, right? So when you're looking at it from a Jewish perspective, that means don't lend other Jews money at interest. So they agree with that. They can't lend other Jews money at interest, but they can lend non-brothers money at interest. And we know the effects of interest, that it's an immoral way to acquire money. It's an easy way to acquire a ton of money very fast, right? And so imagine for about 1,500 years, not exactly because Christianity didn't start at 0, of course, but for about 1,500 years, you have the Christians paying interest while Jews are not paying interest. So imagine the accumulation of wealth you could do, right? Like imagine you're like a poor family, because back in there they wouldn't get loans; they would just go build a house, right? But okay, so let's just continue then. Fine, I will go continue that thought in a second when it's more relevant. But basically, now from the mid-1500s on, you have Christians are now allowed to charge interest. It's just not exorbitant interest. So that's absolutely against the Bible. It's absolutely a sin, in my opinion. You could watch episode 1 if you want to see the scripture for that and stuff like that. But so now you have Christians charging Christian interest. So now you have some Christians getting wealthy off of the charging of interest, think Bank of London, stuff like that, right? And then you have Jews charging interest to Christians, but then you have Jews charging no interest loan to Jews. So no Jews take loans from Christians. So there's no Jews being abused by usury and the effects of having to pay exorbitant interest. But all of Christendom still has to. So for the entire, from mid-1500s till now. So for this 2,000-year period, you have a situation where no Christians have ever got interest-free loans. You could find some minor example where some son of some banker, but whatever. You know what I mean? Basically, that as a rule would stand. And you've got for 2,000 years, no Jews have paid interest. So because they could just get loans from Jewish people. And you just imagine how successful you could be coming up from nothing. Say you're from a poor family, right? Say I'm from a poor family, we'll just say, right? And I want to get a home for my family. You know, I rent right now because I can't afford these exorbitant interest rates and the inflated property values, right? But imagine I could get 0% interest loans. I would have been in the house a long time ago. And I'm a wage slave, right? Right now. So imagine I would have been in a house a long time ago. I would have been building up the equity in that house. In addition, I could have got a business loan at 0% interest, and I would be a self-employed small business owner right now. That would be the difference between being in a situation where you get 0 interest loans and being in a situation where you can't afford the loans because of the evil people doing usury on you. So I'm just trying to explain to you, like, look at the disparity between how easy it is to succeed as a Jew with 0% interest loans and how difficult it is as a Christian having these evil people, both Christians and Jews. I'm not just blaming this on Jews after the mid-1500s. I'm not at all. Evil Christians and evil, like for example, my pastor's daughter. She's the banker who's doing the thing. And I'm not trying to single her out, but nobody at my church watches this. But anyways, so basically, it's an interesting idea about how wealth was accumulated. And I understand that, like, Jews accumulated exorbitant wealth based on that time period from doing usurious practices, and then they were kicked out of the country and their wealth was stolen. You could even go back to National Socialist Germany and like their wealth wasn't stolen from them until after Kristallnacht. If you remember that story, I covered it, and the mistakes were made by the National Socialists, in my opinion. And then at the end, they just doubled down, and Hitler said, "Okay, we're going to do a 2 billion Reichsmark fine on the Jews." Basically, that was like what's gone on all throughout in Hungary and Spain and all these countries that kicked out the Jews and steal their wealth. It's because that wealth is stolen. We talked about that in the Martin Luther episode on the Jews and their lies, where he advocated for the confiscation of their wealth as they were booted from the country because their wealth was confiscated from the people of that country in an evil and usurious manner, right? So I am saying that though they were allowed to get exorbitant wealth by doing the evil thing of usury, that wealth was confiscated and redistributed either to the elites or to the people periodically. So it wasn't a straight line of acquiring wealth from 0 to 2025. That's not a real thing. I'm not even pitching that, But I was watching this. Okay, so it was an Islamic economist watching a debate between Christians and Jews about interest and whether they charge interest, whether that should be a thing, what the Bible says about it, And you have a Jew on the panel who's Dennis Prager, right? Who's of the Jewish faith, of Judaism, right? But he writes Christian books about how to be a better Christian for Christians, slanting them towards a pro-Judaism type thing, right? And they ask him on one point about it, and they ask him like, okay, the Muslim commentator is pausing it because he hasn't seen it before. And at one point he pauses it, and he's like, but Jews get free loans from Jews. And then he unpauses it, and one of them turns to, I don't know, Jordan Peterson or somebody turns to Dennis Prager, and they're like, but Jews get zero interest from Jews. And he's like, oh, yeah. Not really. Sure, in every Jewish community, they set up this loan program for free loans, but it's only for poor Jews. And it's to help them get a leg up. And it's charity, but it's not really charity because they can still feel good about themselves because they're paying back the loan. They just have no interest. Even if you said that wealthy Jews get interest loans, but poor Jews get no interest loans, it's still an enormous leg up. Because when you're at the bottom and you're having more kids than you can afford because it's the right thing to do, and you just can't get up, you can't get there from there. You could if you were, what is it? Dinks, dual income, no kids. If you were doing that and you were just like, we'll put off having kids for 15 years or something like that. Maybe if you were doing that, you could get ahead first, then have the kids. If you do that though, then you delay childbirth by 10 years? So every 2 generations of delaying childbirth 10 years, you lose an entire generation of children towards a group of people in your country who's more aggressively having children at the average age of 20 or something. But anyways, I'm just saying even if it's just for the poor people, it's a huge leg up. So there's no solution here for Christians, right? Because you could have said, well, the Christians should have reversed the thing, not taking the interest Jew loans, giving their own people non-interest loans, and then charging interest to the Jews because they're not the brothers, but that wouldn't work because the Jews already have no interest loans from their people. They're a smaller group of people. And the only reason that Jews can subsidize no interest loans to their own Jews is because they're profiting off the usury to the majority group, the Christians. Right. So in order for Christians to succeed, they would have to be a small group doing the evil thing to a large group. And that's not possible in the situation demographically. Right. So there was no real solution to Christianity getting away from this trap of these 2 different groups, one a minority and one a majority, and the minority just completely pilfering the majority unless they develop systems of loaning money that didn't charge interest. And that's where Islamic banking was so far superior to anything Christians ever came up with in the history of Christendom. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying Christianity just said, oh, we'll just get pilfered by this small group of people. And then we'll pilfer them periodically, but I think that money kind of goes to the nobles and not the peasants. I'm just going to say historically. And so that's not even a help. So the peasant class going out through history in Europe never gets relief from the usury, whereas the nobility does, in my opinion. Maybe there were some altruistic nobles who, noblesse oblige, hooked up the peasants. I don't know. But I think this is an interesting way to look at history. It's something I haven't done before because I didn't even know this existed until a couple weeks ago. All of this stuff about Christianity letting usury through, you know. But the entire paradigm of having a minority doing usury on you, it's terrible. The whole thing's terrible. So that's why I think the title of this episode, Bankers, Enslaved Christians, is pretty realistic. And you should not put up with enslavement from a minority group. And you should not put up with a minority group profiting from evil treatment, from evil actions that are poor treatment of the majority. That's an unwelcome thing and should result in my opinion, expulsion with loss of profits. That's just my personal opinion, you know, because you're kind of a guest, and that's kind of not a nice thing to do when you're a guest, hospitality-wise. Anyways, that's what I got for you. Tomorrow I got an episode with Garen. Looking forward to that. We haven't filmed it yet as of me. We filmed last week's, of course, but which I haven't edited yet at the time of filming this because this is being filmed on the 10th. But I'm really looking forward to hearing what he's got, and I hope you are too. See you.